We are lucky enough today to have Barbara Faracchio. Did I say it right, Barbara?
Faracchio.
There,
Close.
close enough, right? Barbara is a practitioner here. She's an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, as well as a licensed counselor for addiction and what is the DC? Addiction and drugs counselor.
Alcohol and drugs.
Okay. So she was actually started with us how many years ago as an intern?
Man, 2014, I think. So it's been a
Okay.
while,
So
almost
she
10
went
years.
away, did her thing. Now she's back, and we're very excited. She has a pretty full caseload, but we love having her with us.
Mhm.
And as you all know, I am Loretta Depka Zerbo, and happy to do this sort of combination lecture podcast. And we're going to ask for audience participation. So, because you all going to have your stories, I'm sure. We're going to do scenarios of holiday disasters and how to prevent them and how to help yourself through them. So let's start right away. So, Barbara, let's start with the one that I'm really guilty of. Your expectations are a bit overzealous for cleaning, decorating, shopping, cooking, and
Mhm.
making 20 pounds of fudge. Um, how do you keep yourself in check through the holiday season so you don't miss enjoying it?
Right. So yeah. So I think I read that question. If I'm looking down, ladies, I'm just looking down to check my notes, so I don't need to think of. But I looked at that question, and when I was answering it, I thought of something that I know I'm guilty of, but that's sort of obvious in a lot of ways when we think about it, to ask for help. There are people out there, family members and things like that, that are more than willing to help. But sometimes I think we fall in that category where we think we have to do everything on our own. And I know I think of my one friend, Melanie. I don't know if she's watching this, but if she is, wants to do everything. Feels like if she's not doing it all, she's failing at it, and that's not necessarily the case. So I thought about that, and I thought, number one thing would be ask for help, sort of like divide and conquer. You can delegate things to family members and friends. If you have children or grandchildren, ask them to sort of do that as more as kind of like chores or giving them an allowance. You can use it in some ways for motivating them in that way. Some people that might have the luxury of hiring help, so if you want to hire somebody to help clean or things like that. But and maybe even if getting started early, so if you want to do some of these things on your own because you feel like it won't get done correctly if you don't, starting as early as possible and trying to um, kind of balance all of that. But really, at the heart of it, remembering what the holidays are about. And it's not about everything being perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So, kind of taking on that perception of good enough.
I love that. By the way, I wrote that down. Ask for help. I just that one. Okay, so many of us have pets. So you're going home for the holiday and your pet's not working. Your pet's not allowed to come.
Mhm.
Or you're hosting and your family's coming in and they want to bring their pets. So, how do you deal with the anger if you are the individual that your dog can't come? How do you deal with the anger and also worrying about them in the kennel when you go home and still have fun, hopefully? Barbara, jump in here.
So sure. So yeah, so I think you have to weigh your options about the situation. Like if your pets are pets that can be left alone for a couple of days, then kind of they're going to be safe, they're going to be taken care of, they're going to be okay. Um, you know, Thinking about it, like, again, kind of like a perception thing. Really, kind of considering that okay, they're going to be okay. I'm going to spend some time with the with my relatives, and if they're not, then hiring a pet sitter. I thought about that. I mean, I do that, somebody you can trust to come in. There's some really cool people on Pet Finder that are pretty affordable. Some are very expensive, but some are pretty affordable. And it's different with, again, those pets that can stay at home for a couple of days versus like a dog. You have to be in there every day, multiple times a day, just let them out and things like that. So, but your question is like more of sort of like how do you deal with that worry and anger? And I would say just do what you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable going, if you're going to a holiday where it's drivable, go for a couple hours and maybe come home, so that you kind of get both of that. You get to celebrate, but then you also get to be there with your pets if that's something that to take care of them or just to be with them. A lot of people just want to be with their pets. I have somebody in our family that will come in and she'll be like, I miss my cat. And they live around the corner. They don't live very far, but she wants to go home and spend time with her cat. And that's perfectly okay. That it's kind of cute. So, you know, that's sort of, what I was thinking. You can hire good help from Pet Finder. You can ask a neighbor to come check in if you trust them. You could, you know, again, balance that, set your boundaries if you want to only stay for a little while, or it's something to think about. If you feel like it's really not something you can do, and maybe you have to decline an offer, then that's something too. I guess what I'm just trying to say, sort of, to be genuine with how you're feeling about it.
Okay. Next one. What about the person who COVID still scares them? How do they comfortably participate in the festivities without obsessing over getting sick?
Right. So I think this varies in degrees of the individual. Some people might feel comfortable just going to an event and distancing themselves or wearing a mask or asking family members to wear a mask, which might be hard. Some people feel, so passionate about not doing that. But hopefully that they would agree on that. Or you could, some people might feel comfortable just doing FaceTime or just doing a phone call and checking in and might not want to go to a gathering. I think that's such a personal decision, that it's tough to sort of give guidance about that, because if you're feeling really nervous about that, maybe it is just FaceTime or a phone call, or maybe it's going there wearing a mask, asking others to wear a mask, distancing yourself. If it's a nice day, you can see maybe if people will be willing to do things outside, especially if you're hosting. That's kind of, if you have control of that environment and it's a nice day, or if it's a way you can, figure out a way to do things outside, or with where you're feeling comfortable, then that's, you have more control. But if you're going to somebody's house, that's tough.
Okay. So this one, you want everybody participating in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's another scenario, guys. You search high and low and you find the perfect gift. But when giving the gift, they're not as excited about it as you were, and you're starting to feel really bad. How do you reduce your disappointment, not show it, not wreck the day, and really not let it bother you? Anybody have any suggestions here? Come on, you all have gotten the perfect gift and gotten like zero reaction, right? Giving it to someone, you're so excited, they've talked about it all the time, but they're not excited about it when you actually give them. You feel free to unmute yourself.
For myself, I've learned to lower my expectations. Well, and it works because
Right.
people don't. We're a different culture.
Right.
We really are. I know when we traveled and we were overseas and we were in Japan, and I noticed there that my husband would give the Japanese person their what do you call his business card. And this man would take it and look at it and look at it and look at it and turn it and then began to ask questions about it. What do we do over here? Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Right in the pocket. Right in the pocket. It's the same thing, but on a lesser scale. And I do think overall for myself, I lower my expectations about a lot of things, not just this, but anything. A lot, I just can't expect that my children are going to call. I'm grateful when they do, and if they don't, then guess what? They get a call from me. So it works both ways.
That's interesting what you were saying about culturally. It can be very different.
I think we are. We're going in. I think that we're not wired that way in this Western world. And I do think things like Al-Anon has certainly helped me a lot.
And I like that view, because it's sort of like it's you're not taking it personal, which I think is important.
I agree. Anyone else? Oh, Marianne, I think you're, oh, go ahead, Nancy.
I've learned to breathe in and breathe out.
Oh, Nancy, I like that. That's simple, right? It's a simple thing to do and just let it go, right?
And you don't have to breathe in that heavy or breathe out that the person actually knows you're breathing.
Where's the fun of that, Nancy? Marianne has said to everyone, you did the best of your best. My young grandson said to me one time, that's what came up for me. I'm not sure I get that line, Marianne. But I like the line, you did the best of your best. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to talk about that aunt or uncle or parent that always causes a scene at your holiday celebrations. Okay, so how do you handle the scene because you know it's coming? Or do you not invite them and let them ruin it?
Yeah. So Loretta, the first thing I said, and this is probably just just a reflection of my personality, sort of be mindful whether it is appropriate to even invite them. Because if they're causing so much trouble and ruining it for the majority of the people there, then you really have to consider, like, after speaking to them, of course, you want to make sure that they know, but it sounds like they already know. You know what I mean? You've given them the warnings and things like that, and it's not working. So really consider whether or not it's important to invite them, if it's appropriate to invite them. The reason for that is because you're almost enabling their behavior. And that's just, again, part of the reflection of my personality, part of when I think about addiction and things like that. It's not, there's no reason for them to change if you're going to continue to sort of just include them in things. I'm sure it's not just the holidays as well. But if you have to invite them, if it's something that you really have to do, feel it's really necessary. I thought about a couple of things. No alcohol. Have your party, have no alcohol. You know what I mean? Have it so it's not a situation where, I mean, everybody else has to deal with that as well, but it's not a situation where if that's something that's causing them to get out of control, eliminate that. That's one of the things. It might seem extreme, but it's one of the things that if you're hosting, you have control over. The other idea I had is you can ask. So again, this is dependent on the severity of what's going on, but ask somebody to help assist if things do get out of control. Have sort of like somebody there that could, you can kind of work with as a team and sort of say, okay, if so-and-so starts to do this, we can then intervene, and here's a plan, just so you have somebody else to kind of help you through it. And this goes before any of that, but start to talk to the individual before and set up expectations on what you're expecting. Because if the person then, if you do have them there and you talk to them about expectations and they're not following through, then you could say, before anything even happens, I'm going to ask you to leave if this continues. And again, it's varying degrees. I read this as something like being really extreme, but if it's something that somebody's just sort of like annoying and things like that, somebody, once said to me, you can do sort of like, place settings, put them in between, other people that might be able to tolerate them better, and have that sort of be like where they are in terms of when you're sitting and eating for dinner and things like that. So those are just some thoughts and ideas that I've had when I read that question.
Barbara, what about when you make the decision that you're not going to invite them? How do you juggle through everyone's emotion so that you don't have half the family not coming because you didn't invite Uncle Jim? How do you manage all that?
Well, that's true. That's true. And I mean, maybe it's having those conversations before you say, okay, and we're not going to invite him, and sort of seeing where everybody else stands. Everybody else might, I mean, the way that I read that question is like, everybody's irritated with this person. So everybody else might be like, okay, phew. You don't know, so having those conversations and then getting feedback from family members almost is like a joint effort, like, because it's everybody. Because when I read that scenario is like everyone's problem while you're there. So it's not just the host's problem. It's like everybody's dealing with this person. Again, it depends on severity and degree. But asking for feedback. What are some ideas that you have? You know, here we all see this struggle. We all see this elephant in the room. How can we deal with this?
Okay, here's another scenario. You have those families that always show up late for dinner. So now everyone's hungry, everyone's aggravated, and then let's just add they're not being very nice. They add someone to their party of 5. So now you're shifting the whole table on top of it. So how do you get them to either arrive on time? Do you disinvite them, or do you lie to them and tell them a different time?
Well, so I read that, and I thought, you know, and this is probably just an opinion, but if they're not there on, so set an, I mean, I wouldn't want to say we need necessarily to lie about time and things like that, but tell them, okay, we're meeting at 3, we're eating at 4. If you're not here, we're starting without you, and we'll save a plate for you, of course, but everybody else that showed up on time, you know, can't be waiting for them. So I thought that was just sort of a nice, you know, here's a consequence to your actions. And if you are late, like, of course you'll still be included. And of course we still have food for you, but we're getting started without you.
I like that. That's so simple.
Yeah.
You lost a loved one close to the holiday. How do you make it through?
Yeah. So you know, this is a tough one. And this is one of those ones, you know, where the other situations are maybe a little bit lighter. This is a tough one. You know, the first thing I thought of is just to sort of be patient with yourself. Let yourself sort of do what you can do, let yourself not do what you can't do, and just really kind of take care of yourself. Really kind of be patient with yourself. But, you know, I put on here, obviously, seek support, like support from whether or not you're in the rooms in some way, or seek support from family members, seek support from professional help. Like, you're going to want to join a grief group. You're going to want to have the support. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter if it's a grief group or family members or 12-step meeting. It doesn't matter where, it just matters that you're getting that outside support. I like grief groups because people are going through similar things. So it's just a nice way to be able to kind of relate to people and feel included. But then, you know, I wanted to share with you guys something that Loretta just shared with me. It's very interesting. I found it very interesting and remarkable. Her dad had been sick. And around Thanksgiving, they said he was only going to have days, and he had a month. And on Christmas, and this is such a heartwarming story, opened up his gifts, and then a bit of time later passed away on Christmas. And Loretta shared with me that, you know, while that's upsetting, at the same time, it made Christmas special for her. And it's like sort of like a gift. So you know, it was just a remarkable story and very interesting, and lighthearted. You know, he loved Christmas. He wanted to open up his gifts. How sweet, you know. But for Loretta, that, you know, the person who's left behind, that's a cherished memory and a gift, and that's something that makes Christmas a little bit special for her. So we don't really know, you know, where people how they're going to feel about some of these things. But I would say, regardless, the support from wherever you're going to get it is important. Don't isolate. Get that support.
Okay. You're alone for the holiday. How do you celebrate?
So I said, you know, kind of treat yourself to something you find that's special, whether it's on the holiday, or whether it's on a different day. Do something, whatever that is. Doesn't have to be something expensive, but do something that you feel is special. And that really is such an individual thing, and something that you would have to, you know, think about what would make it a special day for you. So that's one thing that I said. There are social events. So there are things out there that you could do during the holidays. Like, I think about 12-step groups and how they have, you know, meetings all day long with food and things like that. Just one thing that came to my mind. There are probably other things out there. where if you wanted to go and do social events, be sociable for a couple hours, do that and sort of come back if that's what you wanted to do. And I think a huge one that we don't really think about is volunteer. Find a place where you're volunteering either for that day or around that time of year where you're getting out of your own head and you're helping, whether or not you want to volunteer with pets or a soup kitchen, homeless people, volunteer to give away, toys at a toy drive, whatever it is, something to kind of get yourself out and, do something that might make you feel good.
Barbara, just taking that a little further, what
Sure.
about those who choose to be alone and want to do it without the family having an issue with it? I'm
Okay.
not up to being with the family this Christmas.
I got you. Okay. And you're feeling like the family's going to give them aggravation or something about that. Okay. Yeah. You know, my first thought is just to sort of explain that as best as possible to them, that it's a voluntary thing. You want to stay home. You're okay with that, and just let them know that the reasons why you want to stay home and try to, have them provide them an understanding they might not understand. So try to provide them that understanding and also just let them know that that's your boundary.
Okay, that makes sense. A family member is hospitalized over the holiday. How do you make them part of the festivities and take care of yourself through that process?
So, I sort of said, ask them if they want a visit that day from you or from other family members. They may feel up to that. They may not. Really have to kind of check in with them. Do they want to be put on some sort of FaceTime just to sort of be a part of the dinner? Or if there are games or something like that, do they want to be a part of that? It depends on how well they feel or guess how else they are. I'd say throughout the day, just have sort of family members call and check in or text if they're tech savvy throughout the day, just so that they could feel included. And in terms of yourself, how you take care of yourself in that situation, again, I think that's the support from others. So if it's a family member in the hospital and then you're going to spend your holiday with other family members, just use them as support. Chances are there's other people there that are feeling that, worried about them as well. So again, it depends on like the severity of how sick they are and things like that, but include them as much as they want to be included and, seek the support out for yourself.
What if you're struggling with depression and really find the holidays taxing? How can you limit your family's expectations and also your own expectations? You should be, do you force, I guess what I'm asking is, do you force yourself when you're in the middle of a depression to participate or not?
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think it'd be a good thing to force yourself. But if you wanted to sort of like, have that boundary of going for a little while, seeing how you feel. Some people feel comfortable doing that. Going for a while, seeing how you feel, and having sort of like that escape plan if they need that. When I read that question first, I saw sort of depression stood out to me. So of course, being a counselor, I thought, okay, well, if somebody's feeling depressed, whether it's about the holidays or anything, probably a good time to start to go into counseling and just process that. If it's every year you're feeling, if you don't feel depression every other time of the year, okay, but then you feel it every year around the holidays, well, there's something there. So, maybe it'd be important to kind of get into counseling and sort of process what is going on around the holidays that's making you feel that way. But to answer your question, no, I don't think you should force yourself. Just sort of go with what what you could tolerate.
Okay. We do have one question.
Sure.
I'm going to shorten here, Barbara. I'm taking you out of script. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
You and a family member haven't been talking through the year. How can you use Christmas to resolve your issue? Can they participate? Can you somehow make it work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think if you want to reconcile, which it sounds like maybe that is something of that you're thinking about is reconciling with that person. The holidays, right, whether they're known for love and forgiveness and things like that, is probably a good time to do that. I would say maybe instead of just like a direct invite to a Christmas holiday, maybe before that, call them up, or write them a letter or what have you, and begin that reconciliation just to sort of get all of that stuff, the heaviness that might come with that out of the way. And then, and you can always sort of say, Christmas is coming and I, want to spend it with you, or I want to invite you, but we have all of these issues that sort of are ongoing. Let's try to talk about this if you're willing. You always can ask somebody, are you willing to sort of reconcile? Are you willing to talk through these things? But I would say do that before the holiday to work all of that out, or figure out whether or not you're going to be able to work it out. And then, sure, invite them. And I think that's a really good opportunity to reconcile.
And how do you sit with that if there is no reconciliation? Is that again?
Like if they shut that down, yeah, that's tough. I mean, you have to respect their boundaries, and again, our perception on thing. Well, they can say to themselves, okay, I tried. I did everything on my side of the street is clean. I've tried to approach this and work with the person, and you can kind of leave it open-ended. If they're unwilling to talk about it now, it doesn't mean they're unwilling to talk about it next year or a couple months or what have you. So you can maybe say, hey, this is where I stand, and if you want to approach this with me, I'm open to that at a time that you feel is best.
Okay, I think that's really helpful. In all of the wonderful holiday celebration, how do we connect with ourselves? The one thing I see all the time through the holidays is people are not doing all the things they do, exercising, meditation, all the good things that we're supposed to do because we're out of time, or we're just not feeling it. So how do we find the space, the quiet time, and make sure we share ourselves, the best of ourselves, with our loved ones?
And I just thought about that in terms of like making it being intentional about that self-care, whether it's the gym or what have you, being intentional about that balance. So, and being patient with yourself, right? So if you're this is just example, like if you're working out 5 times a week and it's Christmas time, you're not working out 5 times a week probably, and that's okay. If you get a day in or 2 days in, that's okay, being patient with yourself, but being intentional about, okay, I'm going to say no to this because I need to take care of myself. And setting up that boundary is really going to be important, because if you don't and you just keep going and going and going, you're not going to be your best self. And you're not going to probably even enjoy the holidays, which is unfortunate, especially if, we're going with these scenarios that the person's making a lot of effort into trying to make holidays really great for everyone. And then they're not going to enjoy it themselves. That's unfortunate, So I would just say no, set your priorities and say no when you have to, and be intentional about finding that time and space for self-care, whatever ends up being for you. And I know I mentioned this before, but getting things started early, whatever that looks like for people, maybe starting things in September, obviously not cooking, but preparation, gifts, things like that. Starting things early is helpful because then you have more control over it as crunch time starts happening. You have more freedom. So that just being proactive about things could be helpful as well.
So in other words, we should have this conversation in September rather than on December.
There you go.
Already behind the mark, right, guys? I'm panicking as you're saying that. Yes, I should have started in September. It always comes the same time of year.
I know.
Still always behind. Does anyone have any questions for Barbara? A specific instance? Nancy, go ahead, unmute yourself.
I have a comment about starting early. Daughter and grandson came up. My son-in-law came up with a really good idea. Instead of buying presents, we're going on a trip.
Oh, I love that.
That's so exciting.
We're not doing presents, so nobody has to figure out what to get this kid or that person or the in-law or whatever. So I thought, that's a really terrific idea.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone sticks to that and doesn't get the grandkids gifts.
Right.
Just because. But anyway, I'm not getting anybody gifts. I'm going on this trip. And that's
Oh, Nancy, you have to tell us where. Is it a wonderful trip?
Isle of Palms.
Nice.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
And,
I love that idea because then you're creating memories.
And they asked everybody to, my daughter and son-in-law asked everyone to pick out their favorite restaurants that they want to go to because they've been here before. So my grandson has a favorite restaurant. My son-in-law's dad has a favorite restaurant. So everybody has a favorite restaurant. So I thought, well, this will be fun. So.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I like that idea a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it makes even better memories, you know?
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's special time. That's a great idea. Anyone else want to jump in there? Any suggestions, concerns, questions?
I have a question, and it might be a poor little rich girl here. I have, there's always a very large family gathering of like 30, 40 people.
Oh my.
Yeah. And it goes on like the entire day. And I've been able to avoid it for the most part for the like last 6 or 8 years. And this year, I don't have any excuse to avoid it. What do you do? I'm realizing I really don't want to be there.
Yeah. Well, how would they react if you just sort of say, I'm not going to make it this year and didn't give any excuses?
On the other hand, I also, I'm trying to reconnect with my family and friends. So I'm like in this, like I want to reconnect with them, but I don't think I want to reconnect with them all at the same day in the same place at the same time.
That makes sense. Yeah, because that might feel overwhelming and you might not really be able to reconnect in the way that you're looking, in an intimate way that maybe you're looking for.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. First thought, I'll share the first thought that came to my mind. If you're saying, okay, this is not something I want to do, and letting them know that, but also letting them know, but hey, I want to reconnect and starting to make plans with them more individually. You know, so you're kind of delivering something that, you know, maybe they'll be upset about, but then you're also offering something that you do want to spend time with them just in a smaller setting.
I can try it.
Could you also go early before everyone's there or go late after half the people leave? That's
kind of what I've done for like I've been the caregiver of my sister for the last 6 years. So up until, and she died this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So with her, I was able to like go in, spend a half hour. Oh, let me take her home. And I don't have that excuse now. So I guess it's recognizing that I'm really a weenie.
Hey, we all are when it comes to
Yeah.
Right, guys? We love them and they drive us crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that true? Trying to find that balance of enjoying them, but then also not feeling annoyed or irritated or overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I've always been the black sheep, and thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
I know it's so hard. And it's such a wonderful time of the year that we hope everyone can find a little bit of happiness and that you make your own happiness. Right, Barbara?
Yeah.
Talk about that we have really got to do it for ourselves.
Yeah. Like I said, sort of finding something that's special to us, whether you're going to events or not going to, just finding something that's special to you within the holiday season. That might be going to look at, again, it's so individualized, right? But it might be going to look at all the houses that have the lights, you know, and maybe you want to do that by yourself, or maybe you want to take the grandkids, you know, and that might be your special thing, you know, the way that you want to, you know, experience Christmas. You might have to do other things, but that might be one of the things that makes it meaningful to you. Maybe if you're faith-based, you're going, you know, to religious ceremonies and things like that, you know, and that's what makes it special to you. Maybe it's reconnecting with certain friends. Oh, let's have a holiday dinner, you know, not on the holiday, but to just kind of touch base with friends because you enjoy their company. Whatever it is, finding that and doing it and being intentional about that.
Barbara, you've used the word intentional a number of times.
Yeah.
And that's what we really have. I'm just learning so much from you that that's what we have to do. Intentional.
Yeah, because what happens is I think, Loretta, well, first of all, I love that word in a lot of settings, but what happens, I think, especially when it's something like this, is we just go with emotions. We're just trying to survive the season. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a strong term, but you're just trying to get through everything. And okay, it's like this obligation and this chore and this and this and this. And you're doing it so mindlessly that you don't know what you're doing. So that's why I say being intentional, being mindful, being purposeful.
And I like what one person has put in the chat for what they do is spend Christmas with, at least this year, is going to be a new puppy.
That's great, right? How fun that's going to be.
Really. Hold down the furniture.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have anything else for Barbara here?
Can I ask a question, Loretta?
Sure.
Hi, Barbara. Thanks for taking the time to come on and speak with us. Okay, now normally what me and my husband do, my husband has a very large family. He has 5 brothers. They're all married. And then there's aunts and uncles and the whole thing. So when we go to parties, we'll show up and we'll talk with whoever we need to talk to, and we'll do whatever we want. But when it's time to leave, we normally do the Irish goodbye, which I don't think is really appropriate. But at this point, they kind of expect it from us.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I just think it's for us to go through and say bye to everybody. That's like another hour. Yeah. You know what I mean? By the time we get out of there. So we kind of just, kind of slip out and we'll speak with people at another time. Is that appropriate to do that?
Well, you know what? I think it's sort of what they expect from you. And it doesn't sound like they're mad or anything about that. I understand what you're saying. Because if you're saying goodbye to everybody now, not only is it taking long to say goodbye to everybody, now people are trying to start conversations with you.
Yes.
So that you are there for an insane amount more time than you really need to be. So it does. Yeah, I think that's fine. It doesn't seem like they think it's rude or anything. And you would be able to say, and if somebody did say something to you, but you have a really good reason for it. Like, hey, this is going to take us we have to get home,
Right, right.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That made me think of something. I have a very extended family. So there's like an hour worth of text messages on Christmas when I'm trying to cook and do everything else. Is there another way to do that and not be rude? I mean, I can't not answer a cousin that is wishing me Merry Christmas from California.
I mean, get back to them later on that day or the next day or something. You're saying just text messages are just coming in from all the these people? Yeah. So
I mean, I'm blessed that they care.
Right.
The other side of it is I'm cooking.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's reasonable. They for you to keep answering texts and taking you away from what you're trying to concentrate on, you're going to take much longer to do everything that you need to get done. So yeah, I would just say maybe the next day or at night when you're checking your phone or something, get back to them. I think that's reasonable because you're answering. It's not like you're ignoring them. Right. You're just answering them at a time when you have the most time to be able to really put some thought into it.
So is it okay to ask everyone at Christmas dinner to turn off their phones?
That's interesting. I mean, you should try that and let me know how that goes.
No phones at the table.
No, I think that is a really good idea.
I think you have that rule. At least at holiday meals, you say no phones at the table. Right? Really? Do we need them?
Loretta, leave a box at the door.
Yeah.
And say all phones here.
I like that, Lori. I think that's good.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Right. But
yeah.
It's hard for the younger ones, I will admit.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking of. I don't see it as a problem with adults necessarily, at least in my experience. But the younger ones, are having half conversation with you and then half looking down on their phone. And so it's, but yeah, I don't think I think that's a good thing. Try to get everybody engaged. If you say, okay, no cell phones, it's not like you're saying no cell phones the whole day, just no cell phones at the table. I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
And again, the other thing that fascinates me is the young ones are talking to each other that are at the table via
Oh, I know.
that's the thing that drives me really crazy.
It's funny.
Well, Barbara, I can't thank you enough. Anyone
You're welcome.
else have a question or a thought that they'd like to share with Barbara? Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi. I did what I have found. There are some people that I find annoying, and that's more my issue than theirs. And what I've done is kind of separate myself. Like, I don't spend a lot of time with them. Last year, I came up with the idea. I host Christmas, and it's maybe 15 people. And I used to go to great lengths to extend the dining room table, put 3 leads in, add an extra table so we could all be at one spot. And it was a lot of work and energy. And last year I said, I don't think I'm going to do that. And what ended up happening that worked well for me and my psyche was that some people sat at the dining room table, some people sat at the kitchen table, and some people sat at the kitchen counter. And the person that I particularly find annoying, I just made sure I wasn't sitting with them, and I had a good time.
Yeah.
Well, you should. You're hosting.
They're okay with everybody else, but it's me. And it's like, I don't need to spend a lot of my time engaging in that person. As a contrast, I went to a Christmas party at a friend's. There were probably 25 people there. And again, I went and congregated with the people that I wanted to get to know better, or that I enjoy their company. And the people that are political and religious and want to get into those kinds of conversations that I don't want to participate in, I just didn't. And it was so interesting when I left and I said goodbye to everybody. They came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk tonight." And I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but I was smiling inside like, hey, I didn't need to do that because I already know what you're going to say, and I don't need to go there.
Yeah.
I'm learning to live with what my emotions are. I take responsibility that it's my issue, and then I just don't have to participate. I'm also an introvert, and I find it hard. I was thinking about Lori with her 40 relatives all in one place. OMG. By contrast, I was at a dinner party. There's 100 people, and we're all at tables. So you have a group of 10. So I kind of scattered out a table that I thought would be okay for me to sit with. And it worked out great. I sat next to someone I didn't know and got to know them a little bit better. And it was very enjoyable. And it was, I found it complimentary when they said to me, "Oh, I enjoyed meeting you and talking to you." But by contrast, there's this other gal who's very much an extrovert, and you'd think it was her wedding, and she went to every table, introduced herself, and said hello to people. And I thought, wow, I wonder what that's like to be like that, because that's not me. I love to have intimate conversations and stuff, but not. And I can talk in front of a group because I have something to present as a job. But to just be like that, it was like, wow. So it was nice to just observe what's comfortable for people and just own your own self. Like, that ain't me. It's probably not going to be.
Yeah.
But
that's a really kind way of dealing with that. You're not, you're just taking yourself out of the situation. You're not going to be around people that upset you or annoy you, and you're going to focus your time and energy on the people that you kind of get lifted up. They're uplifting, or it's fulfilling conversation. I think that's a great way of handling it.
Thank you. What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I sat next to you at an event, Kathy, and I think you are a delightful person to sit next to and have a conversation with. So good work on that, knowing that your strength, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything? Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I learned a lot. So everyone, let's take Barbara's advice and see if we can be calm, cool, and collected through the holidays, and next year start in September.
Thanks, Barb. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you.